What if Michael Crichton had the chance to write a sequel to the Andromeda Strain? What would it be like? We are about to find out. Stay tuned, that's coming right up here on Drew's Book Reviews. Good day, and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Today we are going to talk about the Andromeda Evolution. So this is essentially a sequel to the Andromeda Strain. But also, before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the links below for some cool stuff such as Discord and Bookstagram and all that good stuff. And Patreon. Anyway, let's take a look at this. So the Andromeda Evolution, Michael Crichton. Andromeda Evolution. This is a novel by Daniel H. Wilson. So this wasn't actually written by Michael Crichton, but definitely, as you can see, his name is in big letters on this. This was actually the second one, came in second place to the Powder Mage trilogy as far as reviews you wanted to see as my viewers on my Viewers' Choice poll. And I'm actually really glad that some people did. This got at least one vote for a review option, because this is a book that I wanted to do a review on anyway. So happy about that. But anyway, let's talk about the Andromeda Evolution by Michael Crichton and Daniel H. Wilson. So if you read the Andromeda Strain, then you already know about this. In fact, if you haven't read the Andromeda Strain, but you know Michael Crichton and the Andromeda Strain, I mean, pretty much everybody has at least heard of the book. By the way, Michael Crichton is easily one of my favorite authors of all time, which is why I had to grab this book when I saw his name on here, because I thought, wait, Andromeda? Michael Crichton? I gotta check out this book. So Michael Crichton, essentially, you know, he is like the most well-known name, or at least my favorite author in the techno-thriller genre. So Michael Crichton, of course, comes from a medical background, and a lot of his books are techno-thrillers between science, technology, medicine, that kind of thing. And I have to say that this book definitely feels like it was written by Michael Crichton. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Of course, it has been a long time since I originally read the original Andromeda Strain, but picking up the Andromeda Evolution, it really felt like a good sequel to the Andromeda Strain. So essentially, this is a situation where it is now the space age, essentially. This is not the 1950s, 1960s America anymore, and this is definitely, we've got all kinds of nations involved. This has to do with the Andromeda Strain, which manages to somehow crash land into the Brazilian Amazon rainforest, and having to trudge through the rainforest in order to get to the crash site, while simultaneously trying to avoid the untouched or uncontacted Amazonian tribes within South America. So they're trying to balance this, you know, very, very important to get to the site where the Andromeda Strain has been detected, and while simultaneously not impacting the people whose territory this seems spaceship or whatever it is crashed down to the Earth. So the Andromeda Strain has actually evolved into something completely different now, and it's not the same thing that it used to be before. So in terms of the story itself, it does take place over a 5-day period, with, as we go throughout the book, it kind of takes place in sections: day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, so forth and so on, as we read through the book and we recount the events of each day as we progress. So I really kind of felt that felt very Michael Crichton style, where things kind of broken down in that way, and then that really kind of helps with the story flow, which I kind of enjoyed there, especially with the techno-thriller. Kind of like the way that worked out within the story and how it was split up into these different days. But this book was definitely not all good for me. That being said, I don't think it was a terrible book, but there were definitely some areas where I felt kind of drew back it a little bit for me as I was going through this read. At the end of the day, I think if Michael Crichton had actually written it, it probably would have been a little bit better versus Daniel H. Wilson. But again, this is not me saying that this was a bad read. I still really enjoyed this book. So one aspect of this is more of a narrative-driven story than it is a character-driven story. And, you know, some people really like that narrative drive. Some people like the character drive. Some people like a little bit of both. I very much find that I enjoy character-driven stories much more than narrative-driven stories, but that in and of itself does not make it a bad book. So it is very narrative-focused. We're recounting the events that happened, not so much character-focused. So I didn't really feel particularly attached to any of the characters within this story as it progressed, but the narrative definitely kept me anticipating. It kept me pulled along and excited to see what was going to happen next, and how certain events were going to happen. Now, part of the problem with this book is, one of the things that I did find is a problematic, or maybe not a problem so much, is just something I didn't really like about the way it was done within this book, is there are points of the chapters where it either references things like the survivors, or it references things like not everyone would live through the night, things like that. Now, me saying this isn't really a spoiler because the book spoils it for you as you're reading. It tells you at some points in ending a chapter that somebody's going to die in the next chapter. Now, the book doesn't tell you who's going to die or how they're going to die, but it ends the chapter saying not everyone lived through the night or something along those lines, which really kind of spoiled it for me personally. And I really didn't like the way that was done, because the book is telling me that somebody's not going to live through the night, which doesn't really make me want to feel attached to any characters. It certainly detracts from that and turns it more into a narrative-driven story, but it also spoils it. I don't want to be told that someone's going to die in the next chapter before it happens. I don't want to read a book and say, oh, the survivors. Now, you could have a book where you presume that somebody at some point is going to die because that's just the type of story it is, so you know something's probably going to happen, but for the book to just come out and tell you that somebody's going to die and something bad's going to happen and there are only a few survivors, and you know, when you're reading, it's like, oh, somebody's going to die, great, now I know. It kind of takes the fun out of that, whereas if that was not mentioned, then what would happen is, as you're reading it, when something happens, when a bad thing happens, when somebody dies, it's really kind of going to come up and hit you. And it's really going to pull you in even more, or make you go, oh my gosh, can't believe that just happened. But because it was told in advance it was going to happen, I was just like, okay, I knew it was coming, so whatever. And then you kind of move on. So it really, for me, kind of took the fun out of that aspect of it, which is certainly why I kind of didn't feel that this was the best read or the greatest read, because of the way the story narrative plays out, it really kind of spoils some things for you. One thing that really kind of drove me nuts about this, and maybe I'm just getting nitpicky on this at this point, you never know, maybe I am. You tell me in the comments, am I being nitpicky at this point? But essentially, part of the story narrative is what seems to be what seems to be a Chinese space station crashed into the Amazon jungle. But apparently, the Brazilian government knows nothing about it. They're not really involved throughout the story. There's no indication that they're aware of it. There's no communication between the characters to indicate that they're worried about how they're going to deal with the Brazilian military or government authorities, despite the fact that this is happening in the modern world with satellite surveillance and all kinds of stuff. I mean, how could something that big and that destructive crash into the Amazon jungle, and the country that it crashed in be completely oblivious or unaware that this is happening? And if they are aware it's happening, why isn't that being played into the story as far as how the story developed goes? Because you would think that is just one thing that any government in the world would be looking into if something crashed down like a space station into their country. So it baffles me that while we have our characters and the US government being like, oh, secretive, got to keep this out of the public. Well, it's in Brazil, it's another country. This didn't happen in America, so where are they? That just seemed like really kind of odd choice to me. Again, if you think I'm being nitpicky, please let me know in the comments below. But I will say this, that the book does end essentially on a bit of a cliffhanger, but not in a bad way. The ending of the book really leaves it open for more to be told about this story, while at the same time kind of wrapping things up in an effective way. At least that's how I felt about it. So overall, it is a really good story. I do think it wraps up while still leaving it open for more down the road, and who knows, maybe I'll come across another sequel to this. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, it was an okay read. It definitely felt Michael Crichton's style, but I think there was a lot that was put in there. A lot could have been done to improve the overall story as a whole as well. And I honestly wonder that if Michael Crichton were around to write this today, how differently would he have written it? And so it's definitely that techno thriller, and I did enjoy it overall. And I do think it is a fun read, but just be aware that it's very much a narrative-driven story, with the story itself spoiling that some things are going to happen as you read through it. And if you're cool with that, great. I'm sure that you will enjoy this book. If you really don't like those things, probably not the book for you. But at the end of the day, I did overall enjoy it. maybe a 3 out of 5 stars. Not a fantastic read, but not a terrible read. So there are my thoughts on the Andromeda Evolution by Michael Crichton and Daniel H. Wilson. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know, have you read this book? Are you interested in reading this book? Have you even read Michael Crichton? I've read pretty much everything Michael Crichton's written, and I don't know if I'm going to read anything but more by Daniel H. Wilson. But there you have it. There are my thoughts on the Andromeda Evolution. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, as always, until next time, keep on reading. Bye!